Hey, buddy. Oh, I'm not sure if I'll send this one out. But, hopefully I haven't covered this ground before. It's like I said, last I counted there were over 50, 60 videos. So, um, and my memory is shit. I don't know if it's old age or if I got something more serious. Don't really care. Um, it is kind of weird when I get like 3/4 of the way into a movie and realize, oh yeah, I saw this, or a TV show. Um, and it's kind of aggravating at times too. You start being able to predict, what somebody's going to do, what they're going to say, and they're like, oh, damn it, no, I've seen this before. But anyhow, I don't want this information lost to the sands of time or my shit memory. God, I'm getting fat. Weighed in at 206. What does it matter? Anyhow, your grandfather, my father's time in Vietnam. Your grandfather was a very great man. River has the little trophy thing he got for being on the committee that helped design the M1 Abrams. I think his committee worked on the ventilation systems. I think that's what he told me. I don't know. You could probably look up some military documents. I don't even know if we use the M1 Abrams anymore. I'll certainly be retired in your lifetime if we are. But and he once rode with LBJ in a helicopter over some flooded Texas plains. And he said he didn't like LBJ. The man was an asshole, and they had to pause rescue operations for what he said was a publicity stunt. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of LBJ. There is a picture somewhere around here of him shaking hands with God, what's his name? The architect of the Vietnam War, Henry Kissinger. Hopefully it's around here somewhere. Let's see. Oh, my father wasn't one really for jokes or satire, so I've never been able to confirm the following story, and it sounds a little too on the nose, but maybe it happened, and if it did, I can see why the government wouldn't want a big stink made of it. So anyhow, my father was in the States, and they were having a graduation ceremony for Rangers or airborne, somebody who jumps out of planes. And so they had a bunch of these planes going at the same time, and guys jumping out of it. And my father, I'm not sure what his role was there, but there were generals in the stands and watching. It was like a bit BFD, and so he said, these planes are going overhead, and there's a miscommunication of some kind. And all these soldiers jump out of a plane, and they hit the propellers of the planes beneath them. And so, it's just like out of the sky, they just, these bloody chunks are falling. And my dad said, General just looked at that and shook his head and turned around and walked away. So, I don't know. It'd be very unlike my father to make up a story like that, but, who knows? I mean, let's see, but Vietnam. Okay. There is a record, and I'm pretty sure all this shit's declassified, or nobody cares anymore, but if I die under mysterious circumstances the next week, You know who to look into. Um, my father in Vietnam, he was way out in the bush. There was a weekly Huey that brought them supplies, but it was only him and like three other dudes. My father was in charge. He was a second lieutenant. While he was there, I think he made captain shortly after. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. And what they're doing is they were training ARVN troops. ARVN, I'm not sure what that acronym stands for. Army Regular Vietnamese. I'll have to look that up. But anyhow, my father had a bounty placed on his head. And it was like a lot of money, to the Vietnamese who were really poor. He said it wasn't that much money in American dollars, but I want to say he said like 10,000 Vietnamese dollars, something. I don't know why 10,000 is sticking in my mind. But so anyhow, the two main stories I have from my father in Vietnam stem from this incident. Now, in his records, he's listed as being wounded from falling out of a tree while in an ambush formation. He said he said that's not quite the way it actually happened. He said it happened in Cambodia. We weren't supposed to be in Cambodia, we were never in Cambodia. So anyhow, this bounty's put on his head, and some SEALs come in. Navy SEALs. He said they were the scariest people he'd ever seen in his life. He said, the day he died, he said those were the scariest dudes I ever saw, those Navy SEALs. I think he said there were 4 of them. And so they were going to go into Cambodia and kill the guy who had put a bounty on my father's head. My father went with them. Now, I'm not sure, if, how this all came about, who authorized it or whatever. No idea. But anyhow, so they went into the jungle, and that's how my father got wounded. And as they were hauling ass back with the Vietnamese hot on their tail, they had to go through, like he said, I think 48 hours of just hauling ass, running nonstop, and he was wounded. And he said if I fell behind, I would have been dead. Those SEALs weren't going to put me on their shoulders or anything. I can't really say I blame them. He just assassinated somebody, and then now you got 200 screaming Vietnamese or Cambodians or whatever coming at you. Anyhow, obviously he made it back, or else I wouldn't be here, and consequently you wouldn't be here. Been a shit day. Been a shit day pain-wise. But anyhow. Okay, so prior to this happening, I should have led with this story. There was like the Vietnamese New Year. And he said it's sort of like Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter all, and a birthday all mushed in together. So in this little village, they're all drinking hooch, and this guy walks by, and my dad, because all the Vietnamese were really short, my dad can see into his backpack. Dad was about 6 foot at that time, 6'1" maybe. And he sees in his backpack this guy's got a gun cocked. But the way, I don't know, he said somehow the way that the dude had it arranged, if he'd fired it, it probably would have exploded in his face. And my father training Vietnamese, was aware that they're not always, used to weapons. I guess who would be living in a rural agrarian society like that. So anyway, I reaches in there, he fixes it, puts it back, and said, a couple hours later, the Vietnamese police actually flew in. That was really rare. They flew in, they arrested that guy, and within 5 minutes of putting cuffs on him, they'd take him into a ditch and shot him in the head. He was an assassin sent to kill my father, your grandfather. So, and there's a picture, I believe, somewhere of the guy. I think Dad shot, because Dad always had a camera on him. Matter of fact, the camera's over there. But yeah, I remember a couple other stories from the village. He said one time he was drinking with the chief, and they lived in these bamboo huts. He said a rat chewed through the side and came into the hut. And he said, it was about the size of, we had a small poodle at the time named Ember. But, a small dog. And my dad said he stood up and shot it with his M16. And the damn thing just turned around and hauled ass back out. I'm sure it died, but, Jesus, I can't even imagine. No wonder they were drunk and high all the time, So, although Dad wasn't high, he may have been drunk, but not high. He wouldn't smoke marijuana until near the end of his life. He and I smoked it one time together because he was curious about what it was like. He didn't care for it. Big surprise there. One time, he said a young boy had tried to hurt him or hurt one of his, soldiers, one of the other guys there. And the kid received a bullet in the gut for his trouble. His mother was begging my father to call in a medical chopper for the kid. I think he said the kid was about 15. And, Dad refused to do it, let the kid die there. Don't ever judge somebody in war. It's unless you've been there. I have, so I'm not going to judge. And I hope you're never in war. But I don't know, man. I don't know what you do in that type of situation. I don't know what the right thing to do is. Is there a right thing to do? Morality's gray. Yeah, in that situation, I would think. My father really loved Apocalypse Now. He said that it most accurately captured the weird ambiance, the zeitgeist of Vietnam, of the Vietnam War. It's an excellent film. You should watch it. He also was a fan of Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket. So that's also an excellent film. Really, you can't go wrong with Kubrick. Just be prepared to think and for it not to be a light experience. But anyhow, I guess the last thing about Vietnam was my mother had a brother named Corky. That's what they called him. His real name was Guy Thomas McLarty. My middle name is Guy. His first name is Guy. And him and your grandfather were good friends, despite the age difference. I'm not sure how much younger Corky was. At least 8 years, I want to say. Maybe a little bit less or a little bit more, but anyhow. he was dating, my mother, your grandmother, and so he became really good friends with Corky. And Corky was kind of stout. Um, I have a cousin named Mark who resembles him a lot. I like to think that Corky would have looked a little bit like Mark. He was kind of a stocky guy, but he was really strong. He won weightlifting contests in the Marine Corps. Played football. Real popular, from what I understand. Um, he was the only son. I don't believe he had to volunteer, but he did. Joined the Marines. And so on January 31st of 1970, Corky was killed by a sniper. And that really devastated my grandparents. It's always been said that's one of the reasons they died at the ages they did. My father, the reason that Corky had joined the Marines, flew honor guard back to the States with Corky's body. I can't imagine how he felt, I hope I never do. I'm sure he blamed himself. I think that'd be natural. One time he'd wanted to be a priest. He wrote poetry. One time he was a very successful cosmetics salesman, of all things. He didn't die in Vietnam, but an aspect of him did. And that's what war does. An aspect of him died, and what replaced it, as is usually the case, was coping mechanisms that maybe weren't the healthiest. I'm not going to begrudge him his cigarettes or his whiskey. The shit he saw, the shit he had to do to get back home in service to his nation. Whatever you feel about the Vietnam War, and I don't think there's many fans out there. The soldiers who were sent there aren't the ones who decided to invade. Okay, they were serving their country, which used to mean something. It used to be important. We used to have civic pride. Not so much these days. But I know I'm sounding like an incredible old man there. I guess I am an old man. Like I said, I didn't want those moments lost to time. I guess everything is eventually, though. Yeah. Anyhow, I love you, son. Hope you're doing well.